Yeah, I think that in general, many companies see these yes men as they're leading the company, right? And these
Yeah,
people who want to say this status quo, these rebels, is
yeah,
like, yeah, they're making trouble. Like we're not sure that they're good for our institution in general.
yeah,
And once you engage these people and use their creativity and initiative
yeah.
and the power of creation, is something that might be very valuable for your company. And if you give them the place to do it, it's so important.
Yeah,
And
exactly, exactly.
and we're now like in the middle of the COVID crisis. And there are so many new obstacles out there. So what are the challenges that innovation leaders are facing nowadays?
Well, I think if I think what well, that I still think you have some of the same experiences because it's just a disruption to market, and it can happen. We just need to think about the economic crisis we had back in 2008 onwards. It's these things are happening. What was interesting is I think what it showed us this time around how vulnerable organizations are and fragile, because some of them suddenly realized when we went into lockdown, and if you didn't have an online business, you really struggled. And that also meant that they started to realize my cash flow is not good enough. That means I might stay afloat for 3 months, maybe 6 months, and that's it. And that kind of kills everything in terms of innovation, because now we go straight into survival mode. And that's what I found a lot in my conversation with companies last year is we like to hear about ideas, but they just didn't have the energy and the focus to actually put their efforts into this. It was more about how do I save my organization, and but also I might have to make people redundant. But how do I still keep what I have left afloat? I think situations are starting to change now, because I think we now adapted to new ways of working. We have accepted the fact that business can't stand still just because we have COVID, and we still don't know how long it's going to take. But it doesn't mean I can't do my best, because I think what is interesting, and you mentioned it earlier, people don't necessarily like to change. But I think 2020 just showed that you can't force it sometimes upon people. And
You don't have any choice. So,
exactly, and they adopted and adapted those changes very, very quickly. So it can be done, and maybe that's a testament to say, do we still have to have the same arguments where we're dealing with all this resistance, where people don't want to change because we want to stick to the old ways of doing it? But I think the environment seems to be more positive these days. We start to accept the fact that we have to move on. We have to start doing things differently. But also, because I'm working with and advising a company at the moment who's looking at it's a software platform for underwriting of insurances. But the whole question started with, we got so many different features we want to introduce, but we can't do it in the time we got available, and we don't have the team. So they first thought we need to bring a new team, and that's probably what you have done in good times. But we get them to think differently and say, well, but do your customers need all these features? Would they actually pay for it? Can they see the benefits the way you see them? And now we got them to change and think about it differently. So now they're starting to think more like a product company and be testing product ideas. But rather than building, we actually just prototyping it. So we're creating small visualization of ideas that they can then test with customers. But the challenge they've had is they're afraid to go out and talk to customers, because in their mind, they say, companies then will think of us like, oh, we don't know what we're doing, we're just learning. And said, no, we're not learning. What we're actually doing is we're trying to develop it with you. We make sure we introduce something that is relevant for you, but we need your feedback. So I think that's a conversation that needs to change. But in the UK, and we talked about that earlier, I think we got Brexit on top of that. And it just shows that you can't introduce a change like 7 days before New Year and then expect everybody to be ready on the 1st of January. We also need time.